How you guys doing out there? My name is Kyle, and I'm finally going to be revealing my top 10 movies of 2016. This has gone on long enough, and I'm finally ready to tell you guys what my top 10 films are. Now, like I said last year, before I start off this list, there are two things I need to mention. The first thing being that I did not see every single film of 2016. Some of these films include Manchester by the Sea, Sing Street, The Neon Demon, Fantastic Beasts, and Nocturnal Animals. And the second thing has to deal with something more specific. A grade that I gave a film doesn't necessarily matter here. This is literally just my list of the films that I really enjoyed. Before I start off my top 10 list, I do have 5 honorable mentions, which will be numbers 15 through 11. So let's get started. Swiss Army Man was a really big surprise. It was a movie I had no intention of seeing because I'm not a fan of toilet humor in films. I'm not a fan of fart humor. I don't find that funny at all. However, watching Swiss Army Man, you realize it's a lot more than just a dead corpse farting. There's this very personal story that's infused in it that really connected with me, and I feel like it connected with most other people who saw it. This movie does have a lot of mixed reviews, and I can completely understand that, because it does have some parts that I didn't quite love. It has some really, really weird things, but it is a very, very original film. And I feel like in a world of sequels and reboots, it's great to see an original film. And this is not the last time I'll be talking about original films. Deepwater Horizon is a movie that I actually didn't review on this channel because I didn't have enough time, but I did see it back in October, and I just remember being completely blown away. I do think the first half was a little bit slow due to the fact that they had to introduce a lot of characters, but once the second half begins, it is just flat out phenomenal. And Mark Wahlberg gives a really good performance. This is his second biopic collaboration with Peter Berg, the last one being Patriots Day, which I absolutely loved. And despite the fact that you could argue that it wasn't necessary, I do think it was a very good biopic that really did show a lot of the things that was going on in order for this disaster to occur. Moonlight was an extremely powerful story that was told in 3 parts, or 3 acts you could say. The character in the story is Chiron, and he has to deal with a lot of bad stuff. His mom is a crack addict, he gets bullied, and he realizes that he is a homosexual. There's a lot of incredible themes that are used throughout the film, and Mahershala Ali's performance was fantastic. Now, the reason why Moonlight is not higher on this list, and I know a lot of people are upset with me about this, I was not a huge fan of the third act. I felt that it just fell flat. It didn't connect with me like the first 2 acts did. The first 2 acts are just as near perfect as you can get, but that third act just felt very disjointed. It just didn't feel like it worked. It felt very weak. Hidden Figures really surprised me because I actually didn't want to see it, but my parents did, so they took me to the theater to see it, and I didn't really know that much about the story, and I feel like that was its biggest strength. The fact that this story has never been told, the fact that nobody knew about this. That's what really surprised me about it. Our lead actresses, all 3 of them are great, my favorite being Taraji P. Henson. I have never seen her in another film or TV show, but I gotta tell you, she really had one of the best performances of this entire year. The Magnificent Seven is, I think, the most underrated movie of last year. I loved it. It was a fantastic Western, but it was also an action movie and a comedy. What separated Magnificent Seven from basically all the rest of the action films is that it knew exactly what it wanted to be, and it didn't overcomplicate things. And at the same time, it was also shot on film, which was really interesting. But I walked out of the movie with a true sense of fulfillment, like I saw a complete film that didn't feel like they were just trying to cash in order to make a bigger and better sequel. The film also has one hell of a cast. Chris Pratt, my favorite, is in it. Denzel Washington, Vincent D'Onofrio, Ethan Hawke, and I think that they were all very convincing in their roles. So guys, those were all my honorable mentions, and now let us get into the top 10 list, starting off with number 10. The Nice Guys was probably the most refreshing movie of last year, because they don't make films like this anymore, and I appreciated the fact that Shane Black really went back to his roots, and not with the Iron Man roots because that was terrible. He went back to his actual roots and came up with a very, very interesting story, a great time period in the 1970s in Los Angeles, and it starred Russell Crowe and Ryan Gosling. It does have its weaknesses, but I do think one of its biggest strengths was Ryan Gosling himself. Now, Russell Crowe is a great actor. We all know that. But in this film, it is Gosling that absolutely stole the show. He made me laugh the entire time. I didn't know he was funny. I also think Ngawi Rice, and I hope I pronounced her first name right, she was one of the most overlooked actresses of last year. I thought her performance was stellar. Like The Nice Guys, actually, Hell or High Water is another kind of movie that they just don't make anymore. It's a film that, as I watched it, I began to think I was watching a 1970s cops and robbers movie. It tells the tale of two men, played by Chris Pine and Ben Foster, who begin to rob banks for a reason that's not explored unless you actually watch the film. And when you do, you realize it is for the most down-to-earth, personal reason. And I feel that that made the movie so much better than it could have been if it was just, oh, they're just trying to get money because they want it. They're doing it for a specific reason, and I really appreciated that. I was also very, very impressed with Chris Pine in this movie. I've never been a fan of him, but this is the first time I saw him in a film and I thought, wow, Chris Pine is actually doing a good job acting. Good job, man. In case if any of you guys were asking, hey, is Kyle going to put a superhero movie on this list? Well, here is the one and only Deadpool. After rewatching every superhero movie from 2016, this film, in my opinion, is by far the best. In my mind, Deadpool actually got better on a few viewings because I got to understand a lot more of the jokes, I got to realize a lot more of them, but I do think that it has a very simplistic story that at times you could say is a little bit too generic, but I love the fact that Deadpool always tries to make fun of itself. It's so self-aware that it's a movie. I personally have not been a fan of Ryan Reynolds, but this is definitely the role that he was born to play. Coming in at number 7, guys, is Arrival, Denis Villeneuve's latest effort. And this is a movie that I just rewatched over the weekend. And it actually made an impression on me so much that I decided to actually put it in my top 10 list. I had to scramble a lot of numbers around. But guys, I'm so happy I rewatched Arrival because it truly is a great science fiction film. And I think you guys already know that because most people I know like or love Arrival. Amy Adams just delivered her career-defining performance. This is the first time where I actually absolutely loved Amy Adams. She is fantastic in this film. It's one of the more subtle performances of last year, but it was so effective, and it really saddens me that she did not get an Oscar nomination. It really did. She is easily the biggest snub of last year. It is a very thought-provoking movie, and I think if you're going to go in and expecting an Independence Day, you're going to hate this movie. This is a thinking man's science fiction film, and for that reason, it absolutely worked. It confused me. This movie really challenged me. When I first saw it, I had no idea what to think about it, because, in all honesty, I didn't understand it. If you guys look behind me, I do have a special poster for Rogue One. I loved Rogue One: A Star Wars Story. It was a ton of fun. It was easily my favorite blockbuster of last year. I saw this movie 3 times in theaters, and the last time I did that was when I went to go see Ratatouille in 2007. Wow. Ratatouille is 10 years old? Oh my god. I love this movie so much on first viewing, and I loved it the second time. However, watching it a third time, I did realize there were a lot more flaws in it than I was giving it credit for. I do think the first half of the movie is a bit rocky. It's not just the first act, it's the first half of the movie. But once the second half kicks in and once Act 3 kicks in, it is easily the best Star Wars movie since The Empire Strikes Back. I love the third act of this movie so much. I'm a bit sad that it didn't make my top 5 list, but my top 5 list are films that I absolutely loved so much. And let's get into number 5. Zootopia is a movie that I sadly did not see in theaters, and I still don't know why, because I loved it. I loved every single minute of this movie. Now, I understand that this is a movie that has been quoted upon quoted saying it's overrated. And don't worry, because we're going to be getting to another film that people think is extremely overrated. But I really feel like Zootopia has one of the most powerful messages I have seen in a movie in years. It has an incredible subplot that has to deal with race and sexuality that is so not kid-friendly. It's truly something that the adults can enjoy and they can try to discuss with their kids. And as the kids get older, they'll understand the references. The performances in this movie are all incredible. The animation is stunning. I don't think we give it enough appreciation anymore because we just really expect it to be like that. But the animation in Zootopia really blew me away. Also, it has one of the best parodies of a 1970s crime film that I have ever seen. Out of all the movies I saw in 2016, The Edge of 17 was by far the most relatable one. This movie touched me in so many ways. I absolutely fell in love with it. It really has something important to say about people my age. The fact that we're so pretentious, the fact that our heads are always in our phones. The character of Nadine is very relatable to me in a lot of ways. I love the scene when she's talking to Woody Harrelson and she tries to describe that she loves classical things like old films and old music, and the fact that people are just so stuck in their phones, they're stuck in their little worlds. That quote was so impactful to me that I don't think I'll ever forget it. Easily my favorite character in this movie was Irwin, played by Hayden Sato. This character was so relatable that I got scared at times because there are things he did and there are things he wanted to do and there are things that he said that are basically the exact things that I've done or have wanted to say to people. So it was incredible, yet a little bit scary to have a character that was so similar to me. Hacksaw Ridge is one of the best war films ever made. This was definitely Mel Gibson's return to form because we haven't seen him direct a film in over 10 years, and despite all the controversy surrounding Gibson himself, he is truly back directing, and he could not have made a better movie in my opinion. Andrew Garfield, as far as I'm concerned, gave the best performance by a leading actor of last year. His performance as Desmond Doss was so perfect, you could honestly get them confused. The action sequences in the movie are presented with such brutality, such authentic realism, that it just blew my mind. What makes Hacksaw Ridge really stand apart is that it tells the story of this incredible young man doing these extraordinary things in war. And that is the ultimate level of bravery and loyalty. Desmond Doss was an incredible man, and this movie gave, I think, the best possible story they could have ever done for him. He truly was honored with this film, and guys, Hacksaw Ridge truly is one of the best war films I've ever seen. In fact, I think it's my second favorite, second only to Saving Private Ryan. We have now made it to the top 2 films, guys. This is easily one of the hardest decisions I have ever made, because I loved both of these films so much, but for the completely opposite reasons. I had to think to myself, if I was going to sit down and watch only one of these 2 films, right then and there, which film would I choose, as well as which movie impacted me more and why? And I finally came to a conclusion. So guys, my number 2 film of 2016 is La La Land. Was easily the most sensational movie I saw last year. The whole thing felt alive. And I'm not a fan of musicals at all. I really hate musicals with a burning passion. And even worse than musicals are romance films because they feel like the exact same story. So for me to say that I loved La La Land as much as I did, the fact that it is a musical romance, that is really saying something. This movie just felt magical. Damien Chazelle, man, he is one master writer and director. He wrote and directed Whiplash, one of my all-time favorite movies and one of my favorite films of this entire decade. So for him to come back and for him to once again knock it out of the park is just incredible. Now before I continue, La La Land is basically The Force Awakens of 2016, which is a movie that was absolutely praised and loved by everyone when they first saw it. And then over the course of January, the hate just spread everywhere. There were a ton of people who were saying that this movie is bland and unoriginal and uninspired in every way. There are a ton of people who are saying that the characters were just terribly developed. To that I say, I don't think we were watching the same movie. I loved basically everything about this film. It really was absolutely special, and I think a huge reason why is because despite the fact that we've seen a story about two people falling in love from different cornerstones from different sides, it really is a story about pursuing your dreams. And I feel like that is an everlasting theme in films that have been made for decades. What also really sells it is the incredible chemistry between Emma Stone and Ryan Gosling. Ryan Gosling is slowly becoming one of my favorite actors. He really sold it for me in this film, and I loved his character of Sebastian. I really do, and I don't know why people are not giving him enough credit. He's someone who has not yet accomplished his dreams. He's someone who is so passionate about being a jazz player. But what he has to understand is that in the modern era, 99% of people are not fans of jazz anymore. They want to hear more of the hip-hop, more of the rap, more of the pop music. What Sebastian doesn't realize about this is that he's emulating, but he's not creating anything new. He really is trying to reflect on the past, but nothing about it is changing. Nothing about it feels new and modern. And that's where the whole dilemma of his character comes in. A lot of people complain about Emma Stone now as someone who just can't act, when there's so much more under the surface with her character. She's someone like Sebastian who has dreams of her own, but she's unable to accomplish it. And it was really sad to see her in those audition sequences because I think she did a good job, but everyone else didn't. And there is a scene towards the ending of the film where Emma Stone has her true audition moment that really brought me on the brink of tears. I kid you not, guys. I was that emotionally invested that I nearly lost it. I could see people complaining about the script being a bit unoriginal because it is a story about two people falling in love, and we have seen that 1,000 times. But what made La La Land so special to me is that it's a movie about dreams, and I'm someone who has a lot of aspirations to get into the filmmaking industry. So for people like me, it's incredible to see a film where so many characters have a similar dream. And now it's that time for me to discuss my favorite movie of 2016. For those of you who follow me on social media, you know exactly what I'm going to say. But for those of you that don't, when I saw this movie at a screening at 7:30 p.m. on March 11th, I knew it was special. Coming out of the theater, I knew I was on an experience like no other. And it took nearly 10 months to find and watch a film that could even rival it. And that really is saying something. So, ladies and gentlemen, my favorite film of 2016 is... In many ways, guys, 10 Cloverfield Lane is one of the best movies I've ever seen in my entire life. I loved just every single little thing this film had to offer, and more. I don't think anyone in the world loves 10 Cloverfield Lane more than me. And if someone thinks they do, stand up, because I'd love to have a conversation with you. Now, I'm pretty sure a lot of people are scratching their heads wondering why I chose this movie as my #1 pick. Let me explain. The film tells the story of Michelle, played by Mary Elizabeth Winstead, who gets into a car accident and wakes up in this cellar and discovers from a man named Howard that the outside world has been contaminated. The way in which he describes how exactly this came to be was so shocking, so unnerving when I saw it in the theater, that I almost couldn't believe it, because it just felt so real. The film was directed by a truly brilliant man named Dan Trachtenberg. 10 Cloverfield Lane is his directorial debut. This was by a first-time director, and that is incredible on its own. But the way that he seamlessly edited this movie, the way shots are composed, he absolutely blew my mind. This is the film that made me fall in love with actress Mary Elizabeth Winstead, who, as you guys know, is my favorite actress working today. I love that woman. I truly do. In my opinion, her performance as Michelle is the best work that she's ever done. And not just because I love Mary herself, but because the character of Michelle is a very feisty one. She's someone who is strong. She's not going to be this weak horror movie chick. She is the complete opposite of that. John Goodman truly gives another career-defining performance. This is one of the best supporting actor performances I have seen this entire decade, and it saddens me to my core that this man did not get an Oscar nomination. In fact, It angered me when I heard that he didn't even get a Golden Globe nomination. Why? His performance as Howard was so incredible because he was a man that was very broken. At a moment's eye, he could go from being someone who was very nice to someone who is extremely angry. Now, I remember seeing this movie back on March 11th. I'll never forget it. I remember every single minute. And I'm going to try my best not to spoil anything in case if you haven't seen it, which, at this point, you better go watch it. There is a dinner scene where Howard slams his fist on a table. And the thought of that on paper is fine. But watching that act out was so scary. It was absolutely terrifying. What adds to the intensity, besides the fact that it is a claustrophobic thriller, is the score by Bear McCreary. That score still is incredible. I've been listening to it for 11 months and I still can't get it out of my head. It really is a remarkable score, and it's one of my favorites, I think, of all time. Honestly, guys, this movie changed me. It absolutely changed me mentally and physically walking out of it. I have seen the film 13 times since then, and I still love it just as much. And I really think this movie is a masterpiece. So guys, those are my top 10 movies of 2016. What are your top 10 films of last year? I'd love to know your comments, so send them in the comment section below. 2016 was a very interesting year. We had some fantastic films, but for the most part, we had a lot of disappointing films. Most of the blockbusters I saw were very disappointing. Guys, thank you so much as always for watching. I am very, very excited for 2017. Thank you, and stay tuned.